The lights dimmed, the world hushed, and for a moment it felt as though time itself held its breath. The curtain had fallen on the final performance of Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo's most ambitious collaboration yet. A theatrical masterpiece that had broken records, bent realities, and pulled millions into its magnetic orbit. But what no one knew was that the end of that performance was the beginning of something far more electrifying, mysterious, and unforgettable. Backstage, silence wrapped around the corridors like a thick fog. Crew members whispered as though afraid to disturb something sacred. Cameras were banned, secrecy was law, and every step echoed with the weight of an ending too profound to name. Xiao Zhan stood still in front of a mirror framed with golden bulbs. Sweat glistened on his skin like tiny stars as he slowly unbuttoned his costume, a deep crimson coat embroidered with black threads resembling shattered suns. His breath rose and fell as though he had left a piece of his soul on stage. Behind him the door clicked open. Wang Yibo stepped inside, silent but radiating a storm of emotions. His own costume, an obsidian jacket with silver streaks like frozen lightning, was half removed, revealing the exhaustion and adrenaline still burning beneath the surface. The air between them quivered with unspoken words. For months they had lived inside their characters, fought battles written in scripts and improvised through instinct, shared scenes that blurred the line between fiction and reality. Now the roles were gone, stripped away with the final bow. But something remained. Xiao Zhan turned slightly, catching Yibo's reflection before seeing him fully. "You came," he said softly. Yibo's lips curved upward, subtle, almost invisible. "You didn't think I'd leave without saying something, did you?" There was a teasing tone, but beneath it lay something deeper, something electric. "After everything," Xiao Zhan replied. "We went through fire out there. And we survived," Yibo said. They held each other's gaze, and for a moment the world outside, the crowds roaring, the reporters waiting, the whirlwind of fame, disappeared. Only the two of them existed, suspended between the performance they'd just ended and the reality they were still trying to understand. Xiao Zhan sank into the sofa, elbows resting on his knees. "It doesn't feel real that it's over," he whispered. "This project, it changed everything." Yibo walked closer, the rhythmic sound of his boots tapping against the wooden floor. "The story changed us," he agreed. "But maybe it's not really over." Xiao Zhan looked up. And that was when the first twist of the night unfolded. A sudden rumble shook the backstage area. Lights flickered, props rattled, and the floor vibrated as though something massive had awakened beneath the theater. Alarms didn't blare, crew members didn't panic. No one else seemed to notice. Just the two of them. "What was that?" Xiao Zhan breathed. Yibo stepped closer to the wall, placing his palm on the surface. A faint pulse of blue light shimmered beneath the paint, like veins glowing with trapped energy. His brows creased. "This makes no sense. It looks like..." Xiao Zhan stood beside him. "Like the set from Act 3. "Exactly," Yibo finished. Act 3 of their stage production had featured a surreal world where memories leaked into reality through glowing fractures in time, visual effects that the director had described as artistic illusions. But this backstage wall wasn't a prop. It wasn't part of the stage. Yet it pulsed again. "We're imagining this," Xiao Zhan said, but his voice betrayed him with a tremor. "Are we?" Yibo replied. The blue light grew brighter, racing across the wall like a living river. Then, in a flash, the surface cracked, not physically but visually, like a tear opening in a projected world. The air hummed. A gust of wind swept through the room, carrying whispers in languages no human had ever spoken. Xiao Zhan's heart pounded. This isn't possible." Yibo didn't step back. He took a slow breath and whispered, "What if the final curtain wasn't an ending, but a doorway?" Before Xiao Zhan could stop him, Yibo reached out. His fingers touched the glowing crack, and the wall dissolved. A swirling vortex of light burst out like a star exploding silently, enveloping them both. Xiao Zhan instinctively grabbed Yibo's wrist, but instead of being pulled apart, they were pulled together, thrown into a blinding whirlwind of colors, sounds, fragments of memories, and scenes from their performance replaying like living ghosts. The stage, their characters, their battles, everything mixed into an impossible kaleidoscope. And then, silence. They landed in a world that looked simultaneously familiar and impossible. The ground was made of shimmering black sand. The sky was a storm of silver clouds. Floating fragments of broken mirrors drifted through the air, each reflecting pieces of scenes they had acted in. A sword from their show lay planted in the ground. Lanterns glowed in the distance, suspended from invisible strings. Xiao Zhan clutched his chest, gasping. "We're inside the story." "No," Yibo corrected, scanning their surroundings with an intensity that sent chills down Xiao Zhan's spine. "We're inside something that remembers the story." Xiao Zhan's voice shook. "How is that better?" Yibo smirked despite the situation. "Because if something remembers it, maybe it can rewrite it." A low growl echoed through the air. They both turned sharply. In the distance, a massive shadow emerged, shifting, towering, made of swirling smoke and glass. Its shape changed every second. One moment a wolf, the next a dragon, then a faceless figure wearing the costumes they once wore. Xiao Zhan whispered, "It's the echo." In their performance, the echo was the embodiment of forgotten memories and abandoned dreams. But this one was alive, breathing, pulsing, adapting. It lunged toward them. "Run!" Yibo grabbed Xiao Zhan's arm, pulling him into a sprint across the shimmering sand. The creature's roar shattered nearby floating mirrors, sending shards raining down like dangerous snow. Each shard held a scene. Xiao Zhan laughing during rehearsal, Yibo performing a stunt, the two of them sharing a quiet meal between takes. Memories became glass, crashing at their feet. They kept running until they reached the edge of a cliff that dropped into a churning ocean of glowing ink. "We're trapped," Xiao Zhan yelled over the wind. "No," Yibo said, gripping Xiao Zhan's hand tightly. "Not if we trust the story." Xiao Zhan stared at their joined hands, then at Yibo's determined eyes. "You really think the script can save us now?" "It saved us before," Yibo said. "Lines, moments, choices." The echo roared again, charging straight at them. Xiao Zhan's throat tightened. "If we jump together," Yibo said. And without waiting for fear to catch them, they leapt. The world dissolved into ink and light. They sank, fell, drifted, floated. Time meant nothing. Then, like emerging from a deep dream, they opened their eyes. They were back in the dressing room. The wall was normal. The lights were steady. Echoes were gone. No one had noticed they were missing. Not a minute had passed. The backstage corridor felt heavier now, as though the air itself was contemplating the impossible moment that had just unfolded. The curtain had fallen, the applause had faded into an echoing memory, and yet something strange, something alive, lingered in the shadows of the theater. Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo stood side by side, both still reeling from the flicker of blue light they had witnessed on the backstage wall. The rest of the crew walked past them without noticing anything unusual. People were laughing, chatting, carrying equipment, and congratulating each other on the show's success. But for Xiao Zhan and Yibo, the world had slowed down. Reality felt thin, like a sheet of paper stretched too tightly, one tear away from revealing everything underneath. Xiao Zhan's heart still hammered from the shock. "Yibo, what just happened?" His voice cracked with disbelief. Yibo didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on the section of the wall that had pulsed earlier, the place where something had flickered, something that should not exist here, in a real theater with real electricity and real people. "I don't know," he whispered, "but it wasn't just lights malfunctioning. That was energy." "Energy," Xiao Zhan repeated, forcing a laugh that didn't sound genuine. "Spiritual, magical, science fiction energy. All of the above," Yibo replied, his lips twitching as he moved closer to the wall. His fingertips hovered over the surface, but he didn't touch it this time. "Or maybe something we accidentally woke up." Xiao Zhan swallowed hard. "We woke up what, an illusion?" Before Yibo could respond, the wall flickered again. Tiny pulse. Quick. Like a heartbeat. Both men froze. It pulsed again. And again, brighter each time, casting an eerie glow that illuminated the hallway in soft blue waves. Xiao Zhan's breath hitched. Goosebumps rose on his arms. His instincts screamed to run. But Yibo took a slow, steady breath and said, "It's reacting to us." The entire backstage seemed to hush. The sounds of the crew faded, their voices muffled as though swallowed by an invisible curtain of silence. The light expanded across the wall, revealing faint symbols, curved lines, fractured shapes, and shifting patterns that looked both ancient and futuristic. It was as if the wall was rewriting itself. Xiao Zhan stepped backward. "Yibo, this is not normal. This is like something from Act 3. And Act 3 was fiction." Yibo's eyes locked on the patterns moving beneath the paint. "This isn't." Suddenly, a whisper drifted through the air. It wasn't a sound produced by a person or machine. It was a soft, echoing murmur that slithered across the hallway like a breeze inside a dream. Xiao Zhan's breath trembled. "Please tell me you heard that." Yibo nodded slowly. "I did." The whisper grew louder, clearer, splitting into multiple layers like overlapping voices. They couldn't understand the words, but the cadence felt familiar, like lines from their performance, but distorted, stretched, and remixed. Yibo stepped closer again, more curious than afraid. "It's copying us." Xiao Zhan grabbed his wrist. "Or calling us." The lights above them flickered violently. The atmosphere thickened. A strange, icy draft swirled around their feet, pulling them toward the glowing surface. Xiao Zhan stumbled, clutching Yibo's arm tightly. "Yibo, this is starting to feel dangerous." "I know," Yibo said, steady but tense. "Then step back." "Zhan, wait." Yibo's voice was firm, urgent. "It didn't attack us. It's reacting to something we did. Something we felt, maybe." Xiao Zhan blinked. "Something we felt during the final scene." The thought hit them both at the same time. The final scene of their performance was built on raw emotion, the moment they delivered their most powerful lines, the climax of a story where two warriors confronted the echo of their pasts. They had poured everything into that moment. Too much, maybe. And now the energy of that scene was coming alive. Here, backstage, dripping into reality like ink bleeding through paper. The wall pulsed again, brighter, almost blinding now. The whispering stopped. Then a new sound replaced it, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through their bones, shaking the very floor. Xiao Zhan felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. Something was forming within the wall, something large, something heavy, something alive. Yibo's breathing grew shallow. "Do you see that?" A dark shape emerged behind the glowing cracks. Silhouette. Broad. Shifting. Its outline flickered like a broken hologram, unstable but undeniably present. Xiao Zhan stumbled back. "No. This can't be real." Yibo's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's the echo." In their performance, the echo was a symbolic monster, a representation of everything left unsaid, everything feared, everything lost. It had existed only in choreography and lighting effects. Yet here it was, a shadowed figure pressing against the glowing wall as though trying to break through. Cracks spread outward, spiderwebbing in all directions. The hum deepened. The lights flickered again. The wall pulsed one final time. And then a hand pushed through. A massive, smoky hand with shifting glass-like veins, clutching the air as though searching for something to pull itself into the real world. The air ripped open with a sound like tearing metal. Xiao Zhan screamed. "Yibo, move." Yibo grabbed Xiao Zhan's waist and pulled him back just as the creature lunged forward, its distorted face emerging. Mouth wide, eyes hollow, its body made of swirling fragments of scenes they had performed. It wore pieces of their costumes, its form shifting constantly. They ran. The hallway warped around them as if the creature's arrival had bent space itself. Props toppled. Mirrors cracked. Lights burst with tiny explosions. Crew members walked by unaware, as if frozen in time, trapped in loops of repeating actions. Only Xiao Zhan and Yibo could move freely. Only they could see the monster chasing them. Xiao Zhan gasped for air, heart pounding like a drum. This thing, the echo, it followed us out of the story. Yibo's expression was fierce and determined. Then we have to send it back. How? We barely understand what's happening. Yibo grabbed his hand tightly. Then we understand it together. Another roar shook the hallway, almost knocking them off their feet. The creature was gaining on them. Xiao Zhan looked at Yibo, breath unsteady, eyes wide with fear. What if we can't stop it? Yibo squeezed his hand harder. We will. How do you know? Because you're with me. That one sentence silenced the fear in Xiao Zhan's chest. Only for a moment, but it was enough. They turned a corner. And there it was. The glowing crack in the wall again. Tear in reality. Doorway. The same one that pulled them in the first time. Yibo gripped Xiao Zhan's hand. Ready. Xiao Zhan tightened his hold. I'm with you. Together they ran toward the crack, toward the unknown, toward whatever waited behind the impossible curtain. And the world exploded into light. If you enjoyed this story and want the next part, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next mind-blowing chapter.